edition of self-isolation baking. If you're at home on self-isolation like I am from a recent conference trip, then you know that the days can be a little bit long, and especially if you're homeschooling kids and you're not sure what to do with them. Baking is always a really fun, interactive way to get the kids involved. Like I had mentioned in the yesterday's episode when we did Nanaimo bars, it's really where I learned math skills as far as fractions and how to add them or multiply them if I'm making a recipe bigger or smaller as a kid. And it was a really nice way to spend some time with my parents in the kitchen as well. So that's how I kind of got my start. Today we've had a few requests for this recipe, and it is cinnamon buns. And the ooier and the gooier for me, the better. But a lot of people don't like making cinnamon buns because it takes quite a long time for waiting for the yeast to rise and whatnot. So I thought I'd give you a quick version of a quick cinnamon bun that's a non-rising dough. It's not going to be as soft and fluffy as a yeast dough, but still really tasty and good in a pinch. If any of you caught Aaron Hebert's episode where he was making his pie and he took the leftover pie dough and used that as a cinnamon bun dough, that works really well too if you're making a pie and have stuff left over. So for your ingredients today, you're going to need 1 1/4 cup of flour. I just sift that so there's no lumps in it. We're going to need 2 tablespoons of sugar, which I've also combined with 1 1/4 tablespoon of baking powder, 1/2 tablespoon of baking soda, and 1/2 tablespoon of salt. So those are all combined there. And then we have, what do we have here? 1 cup of buttermilk. Now, I didn't have any buttermilk at home. It's not something I normally keep in the house. But a good kitchen hack is you can make buttermilk with, for every cup of regular milk, you would add either 1 tablespoon of vinegar or 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. And that will culture your milk and get you the acidity that you need. And that is going to react with your baking soda for a leavening agent as well to give you that rise. So we have that, and as well as 1/4 cup of regular milk. So what we're going to do is start off with, and 2 tablespoons of butter that you've melted. So I've already gone ahead and melted my butter. To make your buttermilk, you let that sit for about 5 or 10 minutes. You'll notice the milk gets quite thick. Just stir that around, mix it all up so it's nice and smooth. You'll see it's kind of separated a little bit here on me as well. Plus I've added the butter in here too, so that makes it a little bit lumpier because it's cooled off a little bit. So you could always pop that back in the microwave and make it smoother if you wanted to. It's not that bad right now. So to your 1 cup of buttermilk and 2 tablespoons of butter, we're going to add 1/4 cup of milk and just give that a stir. And then set that aside. And now you can not do this in a mixer if you don't have one. You could just do it in a regular bowl or even on the counter in the old Italian style, but you're basically just making a dough. So in goes your flour, and again that was 2 1/4 cups of flour, and then your sugar and your leavening agents. So your 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1 1/4 teaspoons baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon baking soda, and your 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and you're just going to mix that up. So I just have a dough hook on here. Now, hopefully this doesn't repeat what it did yesterday, but it shouldn't. See, nice and smooth. This is the way it's supposed to go. So you're just going to mix that all up together. Perfect. Now, if you're doing this without a mixer, what you're going to do is you're going to make a little well. So just kind of scoop all of your dry ingredients to the side. I don't know if you can see that or not. Woo, maybe. Okay. And then to the center of that is where you add your liquid ingredients. But if you're doing it with the dough hook, you don't have to worry too much about it. So you're just going to add that until it starts coming together as a dough. Drip, drip, drip. And I forgot this to get a little extra flour, so I'm just getting that now. It's when I need background music to keep you entertained. Okay. So that's starting to come together. It's a little bit dry. And how you can tell that it's a little bit dry is because, so this dough is beautiful, it's perfect, it's not too sticky. But you know that this is a little bit dry because you can see here in the bottom, this isn't really incorporating in. But that's okay, because what we're going to do is just hand knead that. So on your sanitized surface, you're just going to sprinkle a little bit extra flour out. And then you're just going to knead this. So the more gentle you are with this dough and the less that you knead it, like don't overmix it, because then it will become tough. So you just want a nice smooth dough, and you're just going to incorporate it until it all comes together. Just like so. Okay, now what you're going to do is roll it out. Now, if you don't have a rolling pin, if any of you watched Dan Clapson's little video that he did making the pizza from Annabelle's Kitchen, he used a wine bottle, totally fine to be able to do that. You can also just stretch this out by hand or kind of pound it out by hand. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but just kind of get it into that rectangular shape. This really couldn't be an easier recipe. It takes no time at all to do. You don't have to wait for dough to rise. So just sort of get a rectangular shape going. Try to make your dough as even as possible so that it will cook beautifully. I almost dropped my mixer off the counter. Wouldn't be the first time. Okay. So once you have what sort of resembles a rectangle, and you just want to be able to lift it up and kind of move it around. Now we're ready for our filling. The filling, again, couldn't be easier. Now, at the bakery, we have all sorts of fancy utensils and things that we use. Here at home, I don't necessarily have those. So if you don't have an offset spatula, even a pie lifter, let's get that hunk of dough off my knuckle. Even a pie lifter works great, which is what this is. And the nice thing is it allows you to spread it without having to run your knuckles through everything. So for traditional cinnamon buns, you just want to take about a 1/4 cup of softened butter and spread it on. I like to change things up a little bit. I absolutely love peanut butter. So I'm going to be adding some peanut butter and chocolate chips to this as well. But you just start with, like I said, about a 1/4 cup of butter. And you're just going to spread it on your dough like so. Make sure you get right to the edges. This is another great recipe that the kids can help with because really it doesn't have to be perfect. There's not a lot of technique involved here. So it's a great way to get them involved as well. So spread that all out. Now, if you're doing the Zazazoom version, you just take some of your peanut butter, spread that as well. Okay. Next comes what is kind of normally what's involved if you're not doing the peanut butter. You're going to take 1.5 cups of brown sugar. And then you're just going to sprinkle that just all over on top. Oh, I just realized something. I didn't set the oven. So again, even pros make mistakes. So you're going to set that for 425 degrees. You can do it convection, so the fan on, or you don't have to. If you don't have a convection oven, that's fine. But through the magic of television, it's not so big of a deal, because when you join me for the second video is when they'll all be baked and will be ready to glaze. So just continue to sprinkle your brown sugar kind of all over. I tend to pat it down a little bit. This will let me know where I'm missing some brown sugar, where it's a little bit sparse. So like right there and there. You can go right to the edge with your filling. It can even kind of go overwards as well, over the edges. Okay, so that's done. Now comes your cinnamon. And really you can add as much and as little as you like. It's all personal preference. Just like so, just like so. Okie dokie. So there's that. And then again, I'm not really basic, so I would try to zhuzh it up a little bit. So I just add some of the chocolate morsels that we had left over from yesterday's Nanaimo bars when we made the topping. Like so. Okay. And again, I just kind of pat that down. Okie dokie. Cool. Now comes the rolling part. Now this really isn't that difficult. It's also why we floured our surface to make sure that that doesn't stick. I prefer a cinnamon bun that has more rolls in it because that gives me more filling. So when you have your rectangle here, you're going to want to start rolling on your shortest side, because if we roll on our longest side, we're not going to get as many rolls. So just start by making a little lip, just like this. And then dun, 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 continue to roll like so. Nice tight roll is great. Ta-da! So now you have this lovely little roll. And what I've done is taken a 9x13 pan, just put some butter on the bottom of it. Now you can also sprinkle any additional cinnamon and what is this called? Brown sugar here on the bottom of the pan. That just adds a little extra caramelization and some flavor to the bottom. And then what you're going to do is just come along and with a really sharp knife, just cut. Now the first one's never the prettiest. I always call that my tester one. The key is to have a really sharp knife because you don't want to push too much on the dough, otherwise they're going to end up like that. They're not pretty. She's not pretty. So you want to do about 2 finger lengths wide and just let your knife do the cutting. So you're not putting any pressure at all. And then that's what your revolution looks like. And you're just going to put them together. You don't have to worry about leaving too much room between the two because these don't rise up very much. Like so. And this is why it's important to get that tight roll and to press your filling down a little bit so that it stays together quite nicely. So I am going to finish cutting these, put them into my pan, and then on the second video, we'll see them come out of the oven. I'll let you know how long to bake them for at 425, and then we're gonna make the glaze that goes on top. So see you in video 2. Thanks for joining us.